welcome to the Rise of the Super Being podcast. I'm Vanderson Pires, and today my guest is New Zealand Strongest Man. I'm very excited. So Tyler Simpson. Tyler, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanderson. I'm very excited, a little bit nervous, but mostly
It's
keen to be here. So thank
yeah,
you.
man. Thank you so much. And also, Mr. Consistent. I love your name on the. I love that, man. That's super awesome.
There's a reason for that. I'll explain later.
Yeah. Please explain.
Oh, so I started Strongman a couple of years ago, and for an entire year, I came second. So maybe 5-6 competitions, second. It is just the most annoying thing in the world to be so close to first. And so after maybe the 5th or 6th second place, I said, right, I was in a cafe or having a burger or something after the competition, and I changed my Instagram handle to Mr. Consistent because I was consistently second. And then not knowing that once I started winning, I would be consistently first. So it kind of just, but the kind of the reason for changing it was not so much be consistent with your training and your diet. It was because I just kept coming second.
Oh man, that's awesome. What a story. So Tyler, just a little introduction. Of course, we already jumped, but you're father of two. You work as a contract business analyst. And you've been the strongest man 2019, right? 105 kg.
Yes. So I still hold that title. I'll try and defend that in December with the foot.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
Hopefully,
that.
we'll get there. So that was a little bit embarrassing. So I should just quickly explain that in New Zealand there are 2 companies that run New Zealand Strongest Man. So there is New Zealand Strongest Man Series. That's a limited company. That is the title that I hold.
Right.
The one last week was New Zealand Strongest Man. So that's the series that's been, not the series. That's the company that's been around for the longest. So it's their 30th year of running those competitions. So ideally, you need the 2 titles to be the man. So I'm kind of like half the champ, half not. So I came 3rd in that one last week, which I'm sure we'll talk quite a bit about.
Yes,
So I don't, I guess I still say I am New Zealand Strongest Man, but I don't throw that title around because of the other company that exists as well.
So Tyler, let's start from the men. Even I did a little bit of research. They have over 23 different type of exercise. So you've been doing Muay Thai for you did for a few years, and powerlifting as well. So how was the transition to become a Muay Thai fighter, powerlifter, and strongest man?
Yeah, very interesting transitions for me. So take it back even further. So being a Kiwi lad, it was always rugby and softball. Team sports, which was great until you kind of get college and the team starts losing kind of thing, and the competitive side in you wants to win, right? Like I've had these urges of winning from a very young age, and it just wasn't happening. So you kind of drop the team aspects. All right, I'll choose a solo sport. So a workmate at the time got me into Muay Thai. We're at Alpha Muay Thai just out in Porirua. And I loved it. Like I just did it for the fitness and something different, but it was the first sport where I was in charge of the result as such. And I'm still annoyed that I didn't take it as far as I could have, because I feel like I could have been quite successful in Muay Thai because I had that passion and I was able to switch off the kind of the pain receptors like I have done with Strongman quite easily. I really enjoyed being in the ring. So to answer your question, where that went from, like a very lean, very fit kickboxer to powerlifting was my first novice fight. I tore something in my rotator cuff, right? And so I did 2.5 rounds with one arm here, punching and kicking and just getting the shit beat out of me, right? Like it was a really humbling experience for your first fight. Like you don't want to get beat up quite as bad as I did. So you either like step back and just say, hey, this isn't for me, or you just keep charging forward. And I chose to keep charging forward and rehab the shoulder. Didn't get surgery on it, which was, even 14 years on, still kind of haunting me in terms of mobility and things like that. And prepped for another fight. So maybe, 6-8 months of rehab and prepping for another fight. Did that fight, did quite well in that fight. Really enjoyed it. It's like, okay, I think I can do this. I should rewind. I actually worked on a lot of the weaknesses that I had, which was boxing. So I got a boxing coach, and we really worked that, and that helped a lot. And then, so I was training for my third fight, and just sparring, I tore it again, and I was just like, man, I don't know if this is for me, because like I just spent so much time rehabbing that, getting it back, and then it just popped again, and kind of at that time when I was rehabbing it again, because I was still willing to keep going, another friend said, hey, you want to come check out this gym? It was Powerhouse Gym out in Taranaki Street in Wellington. I don't know if you...
Ah, really? Powerhouse, yeah, just beside of a combat room, yeah.
Yeah.
The same street, yeah.
Yeah, so so the owner there, Warren, kind of took us under his wing, and the first session there, I pretty much threw up in a bucket, and I was like, I'll be back tomorrow, man.
Yeah.
Thinking I was, 24, 25 at the time, whatever it was, maybe a bit older. That was kind of, and it was actually, funny enough, that was a strongman session that I did, the first session where I puked, and that kind of led into powerlifting, so you squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was like, oh man, this is great, because I didn't have to worry about the diet as much. So I went from 90 kilos to 105 kilos very quickly. Keeping in mind my weight class was the 105 and under bracket. So shot up the weight real quick, put on some size and all that. And I was injury free I actually don't think I got a single injury my whole powerlifting career. You get niggles and things like that, like partial tears, but you bounce back pretty quickly.
Ah, interesting. So more than Muay Thai? Faster?
Yeah, I think so. But I was pretty careful. I mean, they're very static lifts. It's not like now where I'm moving with weights, heavy weights. So so that transition kind of happened quite naturally, because I was already a bit like on the edge on the fence with Muay Thai. So I don't know what I did with maybe 8 years powerlifting, perhaps. Yes, yeah, pretty sure it was 8 years. So about 2011. That's when I started. Did many nationals, many competitions, probably 3, 4, maybe 5 competitions a year. And then I kind of just lost the thirst for it, like I wasn't really, I always loved training, but I kind of wasn't too concerned about winning anymore. And that's when like it's time to stop or switch. So that's, how did I get into strongman? I was doing the both. I did a couple of strongman competitions whilst I was powerlifting, and I was trying to gauge, which one did I like the most. I think I favoured my body type. Perhaps favoured the strongman side of things, because I was still pretty agile from the years of kickboxing beforehand. Still quite flexible, so I could still run around, pick up things off the floor quite easily. I had a back, from all the deadlifts. I had legs from squatting, so it was quite a nice, easy transition into that sport, other than overhead aspect of it. So I had to learn that from scratch. And then, so like my first couple of competitions came second with no coaching and no proper training. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe
really, just doing everything by yourself? Huh?
Yeah, pretty much. And then, so I did those 2 competitions within, 2 months of each other, and then sought a coach. So I started in New Zealand, and a lot of the guys that I was approaching were full. So I ended up in Australia under the strongman way. So Tyson Morrissey and Lee Shaw is who I ended up with, who's been my coach ever since. So we're about probably 2 years to the month under him. So he had a lot of work to do with me. So pretty much like, new to the sport. Okay, got a bit of a static base, but that's a very small aspect of strongman. So I had to learn everything, how to pick up a stone and how to press a dumbbell, a log, pull a truck.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't just know how to do that. You have to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did for the first year. Kept coming second, which was fine. We weren't dropping, but we were staying consistent. And I was pretty happy with that until it got to a point where I was like, geez, man, what do I need to do to ramp this up a bit? And then, so the first competition I won was the Nationals 2019. And then did about 5 competitions this year. Won most of them, except for last week. But yeah, I was on a pretty good roll.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I said to you when you said, when would you like to do the podcast? And I said, perhaps after this week, because we might have a better story for you.
Yeah.
And, I think we've got the story there.
That's awesome. So Tyler, in which moment, kind of, because must have a moment when you're lifting and said, no, man, I'm doing very well. I'm lifting. I'm lifting pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So when was this moment? Did you have this moment when I'm bench press, I don't know how many kgs?
Yeah, sometimes, man. Like, because with social media nowadays, it wasn't so much around throughout the powerlifting days, but now with, it's 2020, it's very easy to see what your competitors are doing. And then when I could see this year especially that I was doing weights, New Zealand record weights and over the New Zealand record, it was like, shit, all right, maybe we've got a pretty good thing going here. Due to, coaching and like a wicked support network and all that. It's not just me lifting weights, it's a whole bunch of people that help you get there, right? So when I started hitting some pretty big numbers, I was like, man, okay, we've got something. We're onto something. Let's not change anything, but let's keep the momentum moving forward. And I attempted a few records. I got a couple records, New Zealand records this year.
Which ones?
The log press.
How heavy?
It's only 130 kilos now, which is, I'm up around that 140 nowadays. But that was March, so just before lockdown, a week before lockdown. Did this competition to set the New Zealand log record. So I achieved that. I was like, cool. The other one, sorry, I shouldn't claim it. I equaled the New Zealand record for Atlas Stone over bar. I've done more in training than that record, but I stuffed up my weight cut, like really bad. I was still 600 grams over.
Oh, only 600 grams.
Well, on the day, and you have like an hour and a half before the competition starts, or 2 hours. And so I lost the weight, 600 grams in, I don't know, just over an hour. And didn't really have time to warm up. And so my first lift was the current New Zealand record. And then I had, basically you get 3 attempts. I had 2 more attempts to push the current record, and I failed both of them. I was like, lesson learned. Like I'd done, maybe 20 kilos more in training the week before. But I was maybe 109 kilos or 108 kilos. And so that was a really big lesson learned after that. Was, get the weight sorted at least the day before. And even nationals last week, I was still doing a little bit of cardio the morning of. But this was a 24-hour weigh-in. So nationals is always 24 hours. Which is what your guys do, right? Which is way easier than 2 hours. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. What else? Oh, and I'll go for I'll try and push the log record and the Atlas Stone record in December. Yeah. So.
And you were aiming for how heavy?
Oh, I don't know, because I've thrown out numbers before and not achieved it. But ideally around the 140 log. And probably 180, 190 Atlas Stone over a bar.
Wow.
Would be cool.
That's amazing. So, man, just before we get more into the details of your training, so can you explain, because Strongest Man is still a very underground event,
Yeah.
So how old is that in New Zealand?
Oh man, good question. So the New Zealand Strongest Man competition that was last week, that was their 30th edition. So yeah, let's say 30 years for that one. That was the more of the, arguably that has the minor behind it because it's got all that history. And then the New Zealand Strongest Man Series is, I think, maybe 5-6 years.
Ah, so you're pretty young.
So very, very young sport, but like you say, very underground. So that's kind of why I've been, I don't want to say poster boy, but I've been trying to draw out the strongman and strongwoman scene in Wellington. And kind of like be the beacon that, hey, it's here. If you want to try it, just give me a shout. And a lot of people have, even before I was coming out as a coach kind of thing, people just, hitting me up on Instagram, like, hey, can I come train? And throughout lockdown and, well, for the past however many years, I've just been training in my garage. And so I can't be like, oh, yeah, just come to my house and train. It's like I've got kids and stuff sleeping upstairs. But I eventually, so I bit the bullet and went into a storage unit in Porirua, just like a 6x3 meter unit, which is tiny, like so tiny for all the things that I have. And that's where I had a lot more, or a couple more people come approach me about training, and I was a bit more open to that because we had the space. But we quickly ran out of space, and so that's kind of how I ended up in CrossFit Porirua. Just had a chat to Mitch.
Shout out to Mitch.
Yeah, shout out
Sam.
Mitch.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Loving the digs. So I was there for a weightlifting course, Richie Patterson, level 1 weightlifting. Because even now I always am intrigued with weightlifting, and I appreciate that sport and how complex it is. And so I wanted to learn it because it helps my sport, or helps my body, and develop me, basically like plugging up all the weaknesses, right? And so that course was at CrossFit Porirua, and I met Mitch, and he was awesome. I was like, man, we should have a chat. I need a space. I think you might need a strongman coach. And the timing was just perfect because their current coach was on the way out, kind of thing. And so we met up like a week or two later and just said, like, this is what I'm after. What are you after? And it just happened like the week after that I was in coaching.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And so Tyler, the same first, what type of challenge the strongest man is about it, and the man and the woman they have to do the same. It's the same thing, or it has different challenges.
So do you mean like the events?
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely, the women do the same as the men. The weights are often scaled. Sometimes the truck pull would be the same weight, like 10, 20 ton kind of thing. But I mean, honestly, don't be surprised about how strong.
Oh yeah, man, I can imagine.
Females are like they're really strong.
Yeah.
So it's so like if you set a 50-kilo dumbbell over your head, you're like, shit, that's pretty heavy. A lot of females are doing that for reps,
Holy.
Yeah. Maybe not a lot, but there are females out there doing it for reps kind of thing.
That's amazing. So Tyler, how many exercises, so how many things you need to achieve to win the whole competition? Because I did a little bit of research, and man, even some names are funny. It's Hercules hold, super yoke, duck walk, crucifix, giant dumbbell press. Man, and the list goes on. Atlas stones, vehicle pull, overhead press, of course. How many of those do you guys have to do? All of them?
Pretty much. So there are regional competitions that qualify you for national competitions, and the regionals are usually 4 events, sometimes 6. Whereas the nationals is typically 8 events. So 2 days, 4 events each. You always find out what the events are a few months in advance. So you train specifically those events. However, in an off season, if you're only targeting comps later in the year, you pretty much have to train everything. Not necessarily like a car deadlift or a car squat or truck pull, but the fundamentals are your compound movements, like your squats, your deadlifts, your pressing, a lot of core, a lot of posterior chain, glutes, hamstrings. So if you keep those muscles ready all the time, then you're pretty much ready to load anything. The only thing that comes into play is the technicality of moving a truck, for example, and if you haven't practiced that. So it is very hard to train for if you don't have a clear path. But with strongman, it's always broken down into 4 aspects. So there's an overhead movement. Could be dumbbell, log. It could be, a barbell over your head, something overhead. So you work that. Some form of a lift, like a deadlift. It's usually always a deadlift of something. There is a carry, so it might be, sandbag carry, farmer's carry, stone carry, and a load aspect. So loading stones, loading sandbags, and so you kind of, like every single comp will have those 4 components, more or less. So when I teach my classes on Sunday, we kind of break down each of those into one session. So we'll do an overhead day with core. We'll do a deadlift day or a lifting day from the floor and core. Like the core is I'm very big on working core. And so when you break it down like that, it becomes pretty simplistic in my head what areas you need to train. And it keeps things pretty fresh. Like it's not to dig at boxing, but you're not punching all day or you're not doing hooks all day. It changes every single day because there's so much to work on. And like I say, it keeps me pretty fresh, and I'm still learning. Like I've never done a duck walk before. It's not really a thing in New Zealand, but man, I should probably do it one day. Or power stairs, big weights up some stairs. Like I've never tried these things before, and I've been doing it for 2 and a bit years.
Wow,
there's just so many.
Yeah, what's your favorite, and what's what's your favorite exercise, and what's the least favorite one, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty big on squats. Like I think squats and deadlifts should be
front squat or back squat.
Back squat.
Back squat.
Front squat's probably on the other scale. Not quite my strength, but even before powerlifting, I would always try and squat, even if I didn't know how to. I'd always squat and deadlift. And I think everyone should do it for any sport, really. Like I'm not talking heavy. I'm just talking like moving really well in a nice deep squat, and nice powerful deadlift will just help you in anything. So my favorite event is probably Atlas stones. I just love the idea of picking up around rock and loading it, launching it over something. I think that's something that really satisfying from that. And my progress over the 2 years has been pretty drastic with that. Like I started off about 100 kilos and put on 80 kilos in maybe a year or so.
Wow, man, that's a lot.
Maybe a bit more than a year, but so it's really cool. Like if I stayed around that 100, I'd obviously be like, this event is not for me. But in saying that, there are natural stones, just like river rocks kind of thing, and I struggle with that because you have to find the grooves and
the angle.
Yeah, every single stone is different. What else?
Yeah, because on the video, when I watch you doing that, man, it's so much adjustment, and the one looks the hardest one for sure.
Yeah, and because a lot of the competitions are in Auckland, you don't have time to talk to the stones, and say, hey man, where's the sweet spot? You get about 10 minutes before the actual event to warm up and have a feel around and see if there's any pockets that work for you. But I usually just wing it. Just pick it up and launch it, and if it doesn't move, it doesn't move. Yeah.
Man, no, that's something. Well, one thing I love what you said. That I always say that to my students as well. No, I said, man, doesn't matter if you play chess, you should lift weights. Weights should be, something for everybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter. Of course, it's not everybody's gonna, have even the build, to become the strongest man as yourself. But doesn't matter, because the body composition, it's made out of muscle. If you don't have that, what you gonna replace that with? Fat, right?
Absolutely.
And also has something so true history. We are fascinated by people who are able to lift heavy things. Why do you think we have this fascination of it? Because man, this comes from, as I said to you, before I interview you, I watched Eddie Hall, the documentary, and I had no idea. I just wanted to do some research online. And even my wife, who has no zero interest, and she said, "Wow, that's pretty cool. Oh, I love this guy. He's so passionate about what he's doing, and the whole thing. It's so entertaining." And so, why do you think we have this natural thing with, be strong, especially around the man?
I think you just nailed it. And your question was, it's entertaining. Like a lot of people like to watch people pull trucks, lift stones, do deadlifts with Hummer tires. It's cool to watch. Like, man, even my kids are like, oh, "Dad, this is pretty cool." It's just that we've always had a fascination for sports like that, even though the combat sports. Like, man, I love watching fighting. I think it's just in our DNA to. I mean, it's either for you or it's not, right? You're either like pro or really against combat sports. But I've always been intrigued with it well before I started Muay Thai. Like, it's just the coolest thing ever. And for me, Muay Thai especially is like right up there for me. Like, that is hardcore. And then strongman was kind of like the best thing I could kind of settle with. That is a bit safer for me, and kind of suited my body type, and it's entertaining. Like, we love what we do because the people get involved, and it's just a cool sport to watch. It's not boring. It's always something different, and you're never gonna see anything like it. Like, just in your local gym, like the super yoke that you said before. Like, we were doing 400 kilos last weekend. Where in New Zealand are you going to see someone run or walk with 400 kilos on their back at a strongman show?
Yeah, man, that's insane. That's insane. Tyler, what's your... Because, man, you have a full-time job. You have 2 kids. You have a wife. So, man, how do you juggle this whole thing and plus, being the Mr. Consistent, kind of with consistent with your training? So how do you manage all of that?
You get some pretty good babysitters, and no.
And you must have a very strong woman as well behind.
Exactly. So that's kind of like you can't. So every hour that you train is an hour away from your duties as a parent. So you have to just juggle it, really. Like, that's why I trained at home for so long. When my kids were a lot younger, it was just easier for me to be at home, train when they're asleep. Now they're getting a bit older, so 5 and 2 is not terribly old, but they're getting a bit more, into that sleep pattern. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, they're out, so I can shoot off to the gym for a couple of hours in the evening and do my thing. So once you get a pretty good routine like that, it makes it very easy to commit those 2-3 hours 5 times a week, because that structure is there. So you have to have the structure first of all. Like, if I've got a very 9-to-5 job, it's an awesome job and I love it, but I'm pretty much out of there at 3:30 to spend a few hours with the kids, and then when they're in bed, then I can do my thing. And that it's just that structure that has allowed me to kind of push things a lot more. And there have been evenings where I didn't get home till 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock, and then I've had a pre-workout, so I'm not sleeping till after midnight, and then rinse and repeat, go to work, do it all over again. It can get pretty extreme, but I just utilize the time that I get quite efficiently. And then when you're not training, of course, you're a father, That's when you
Yeah,
make
yeah.
up some time. So this week's been really cool for me because I've been off work with my foot or working from home the last 2 days. So I've been able to hang out with the kids a lot more and catch up on some lost hours.
Yeah, yeah. So Tyler, what's your training? So what your training looks like? So you said a couple of hours. So what do you train? So what's the routine?
Yeah, so like I always start my week with squats. Like Monday, squats. And
Why?
well, to be fair, that's what I was programmed. So my coach said Monday we squat. I said, okay. But I really
Monday
like,
squats. I
yeah,
like that.
well, it really sets you up for a really good week, especially if you're in that stage of your program where you're having heavy squats. I swear heavy squats just set me up for a fantastic week. I can do heavy deadlifts, heavy stones, heavy log. If my squats aren't feeling great on that Monday, then it's hard to pull it back, you know. So I love starting the week with squats. Shout out to Coach Lee for that, because that's just a really good. And we could be squatting 3 days, but starting squats on a Monday is really good. And then you've got your assistants and all that. So on a squat day, it's the primary thing to achieve is your squats, and then it's a bit of accessories like, you know, goblet squats or lunges and core and all that stuff. Then your next day might be overhead pressing, so give the legs a bit of a rest. So say Monday, Tuesday, have Wednesday off. Thursday would be deadlifts and accessories. Friday would probably be another pressing day or kind of a moving day, so like sandbag running. And then Saturday is a big 3-hour session of probably the 4 comp specific events. So I pretty much do a mock competition every single week.
Oh, really? Wow.
At a scaled back weight. And so my conditioning is typically there for every single competition, because I'm doing less work technically, because I'm only doing 1 set, whereas in training I'll be doing 4 or 5 sets of each 4 events. And so yeah, it might take me 3-4 hours to get through it, but I just, you know, get through it eventually. And that kind of gets me ready for comps, just that conditioning and doing the hard work in the gym to make the competition a bit easier.
And how many days per week?
So 5. What was that? Was that 5? Yeah, 2 days off. Yeah.
2 days off. How about diet? Because man, on that documentary of Eddie Hall, man, his diet wasn't that great. Do you have someone to help you? Do you care much about it, or you just want the calories and the energy?
Bit of both. So I only care because my weight class is 105, right? So if I go 110, like I'm in a bad place, and I often do that, to be fair. So I pull it back to my ideal is like 108 kilos, because that's just 3 kilos to strip the week of piece of cake. So it's hard when you're watching things like Eddie Hall or Thor eating 10,000 calories, and that's what people see strongman is, and it's totally not, especially in New Zealand. Like, look at the size of us. We're so small compared to that. As a nation and as people, we're just not built like that. So I mean, maybe like 3,500 calories would be pretty good for me. I don't note that down. I don't log it or anything, but I know what that looks like. You know, it's about 6-7 meals, lots of protein, lots of carbs too. Like especially, I want my carbs to be releasing in the evening when I train. So, you know, lots of kind of rice and your porridges and all that stuff. But then I've got lots of time for takeaways, and you know, because the training is so intense that you're burning so much calories, and you just can't. When it gets to a nationals prep, you just can't keep up with the sensation of hunger. Like your body is just going overtime. So yeah, so takeaways, you know. I'm not shy about a bit of whiskey before bed kind of thing, just to relax the body. So it's like, when you're asking me about diet, my diet is pretty loose, to be fair, but I do have restrictions in terms of, as long as I stick to that, within that 3-4 kilos of my competition weight class, then I'm pretty good to go. I'm pretty happy.
That's awesome. So man, yeah, because this conflict with the pre-workout just doesn't let you to go to bed. You know, and man, sleep is a massive part of the train as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a very rare occasion would I be having a pre-workout. But like I say, when it gets to nationals prep and you need to be 100% every single session for a month or two, you know, you're willing to go through whatever it takes to achieve that. 2-3 months out, different story. Like I'm quite happy to do it, you know, pretty half asleep and just go through the motions, you know, without hurting yourself kind of thing. But the weights aren't anything that you shouldn't be able to achieve with one eye closed and one foot. You know, it's when you get close to the competition, the intensity ramps up, volume drops, intensity goes up, and things get pretty heavy. So if you're not 100% or you're not fully in the moment, that's where injuries happen and you can really hurt yourself. So,
do you have any specific training for that, for the mental side, the visualization or meditation? Do you have any specific thing, any ritual do you like to do?
Not really, to be fair. In terms of the mental capacity, I have a good network of guys that have started training with me, and we talk a lot about, you know, things at home or gym stuff, or, you know, or diet, or just anything really. And that's really helped me kind of, you know, switch off that, or just tick that mental wellness box just by talking to these guys. And I encourage it to anyone that's you know, training alone, or but like me, maybe 6 months ago, bit of a hard ass and just not willing to open up to people about things. And it doesn't have to be bad things, right? We're just talking about, like, man, I had a really shit day, or my weight is so far off, I'm not sure what to do. And they'll just be like, you know, pull your head in, bro, or jump back on the diet, or go hit the treadmill. And sometimes that's just the switch that you need to be like, oh yeah, sweet ass. So I'm on the other end helping my guys that are competing tomorrow. Like, one of them's really struggling with weight, and, you know, I was advising against water loading, you know, water cutting. I'm just like so against that, but he was so far overweight. It's like, man, what do we do? So unfortunately, yeah, we might have to water load with some cardio and pretty much no food. But, you know, I don't encourage those practices. That's why I, you know, try and stick a bit closer to the weight class. And, you know, Kiwis tend to be, you know, a bit more overweight, and, you know, we're just not everyone, but we carry a bit more fat in their muscle kind of thing as a nation. So we can always lose a bit of fat, trim down, and it gets harder as you get, you know, bigger muscles, and it's harder to drop the weight and all that thing. But yeah, there are ways around it.
Yeah. So Tyler, let's talk a little bit about last weekend. No, you coming third, right? So what was the highlights of the last weekend? So was the Strongest Man the series, right, in Auckland?
The Strongest Man. Yeah, just the New Zealand Strongest Man,
okay.
not the series.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the December one. So this is the one that I wanted to win to have both titles, right? So, man, I was coming in real hot for this competition. Like, training was just perfect. Like, I had a few, you know, really grim sessions, late night sessions, but again, with the support of my friends, they helped me through it, and we got there eventually. And then so day one is 4 events, day 2 4 events. Day 1 3 events in, I was clear leader by about 5-6 points kind of thing. Like, I was really happy with those 3 events, and some of my best events to come in the next day. So I'm like, cool, man, this is looking really well. Like, this is what we trained for. Not like thinking it's in the bag, but, you know, just really happy with where I'm sitting in the table. And these are like the nine strongest guys in the country. And I was like, pack leader. And so we start warming up for the anvil, which was the 4th and last event for the Saturday, day 1. 160 kilo anvil. I picked this thing up, so the table was quite low, like maybe 2 feet off the floor. So you pick this anvil up, get a feel for it. Oh shit, I don't know how to put it back down. So you, in hindsight, probably should have squatted forward, or there were people around me. I should have just asked for help. So what do? I pretty much lunge it onto the table. Okay, it lands on the table, rolls off the table, crushes my foot. And it just made this massive sound, and everyone's like, "You okay? You okay? You okay?" And I was borderline verging, crying, because I was just so disappointed that I'd done that. Not because of the pain, but because I could see the title just in that moment gone. Like, there's no way you can come first with what I found out later, a fractured foot.
How heavy was the table?
Oh, the table didn't fall. It was the anvil.
Ah, okay.
So
How heavy was
the
that?
the 160 kilo anvil. So to be fair, not the entire anvil, just like the pointy bit at the end, that flush on my foot. And even that, like where it landed, I was so lucky. Like, it could have been a little bit more to the left, would have crushed it, and I couldn't use my foot. A little bit further forward, my toes would have been destroyed. So where it landed, it was quite a sturdy point as such. And so I kind of just sat down, and a nurse came and gave me ice and all that, and someone gave me some pills, and I was just like, man, I was so disappointed. Like, because you can see the title, everything that you've worked for pretty much the whole year, gone. So I sucked it up. I did the event. So because in strongman, if you're coming first, you get to go last. So you get to see what everyone else did, right? So I knew I had to do, so you run with this anvil, 20 meters, turn around, come back. And it's just max distance. You go until you drop. So I knew I had to do 2.5 lengths, so 50 meters to stay on top. So I managed to do that by some pure will of stupidity, or I don't know. I mean, maybe I was probably still in the adrenaline and in the moment kind of thing. I kind of just switched the pain off and went for it. But yeah, if you've seen the video on Instagram, I had like 5 people following me just in case I passed out or dropped it again on the other foot perhaps. And yeah, thankfully with them kind of supporting me, I was able to just, right, let's just go until your toes fall off. And I felt really good. So I did what I had to, the 2 and a bit, and then a bit more to get the points. And then my toes just, sharp pain went all the way down my feet into my toes. I was just like, nah, take it, and pretty much just lay on the floor and had a moment for a bit, and got taken to A&E for x-rays, and so had that looked at. They gave me a moon boot, which I'm supposed to have on, moon boot and crutches, sent me home some Panadol and all that stuff, and then I'm just like, what do I do? Like, there's still 4 more events to go on the Sunday, and so I crutched it into the venue on the Sunday, and the lady was like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm just going to come compete. So, no, you're not. It's like, yeah, I am. Like, you're in crutches in a moon boot. There's no way you're competing. It's like, okay, I'll tell you what, if I pass out, or if I can't do it, I'll pull out. How about that? She's just like, okay, I still don't think you should do it. I was like, okay, right, can I go in? She was like at the entrance of it. So I got in, and yeah, pretty much I was in. Popped some painkillers, I won't say what, which got me through the day. And then, so because I was in so much pain, I couldn't warm up. You warm up for squats, but doing light squats. So it was farmers, 145 kilo farmers in each hand. I couldn't walk with it, so I just picked it up. Okay, yep, and 400 kilo yoke, and so. Yeah, waited for everyone to do their thing because I was last again, and then it was just the most excruciating pain I think I've ever been through. So I finished the farmers, carry these farmers 20 meters, run back and started the yoke and moved it maybe a meter or 2, and then ran out of time. And then I was just, yeah, you can see where this day is going. Like, it doesn't get better. It was so much pain. So I started dropping off first into like second, and then what was the next event? Monster dumbbell. So, you know, the big dumbbell, press it over your head. I got 1 rep at 75 kilos, and that was enough to get me some points. Still maybe sitting, that might have dropped me to, I don't know, 5th, for example. And then there was car squat, which, to my delight, didn't hurt my foot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was able to, because the nature of how a car squat is set up, it's more of like a kind of a hack squat. So it's your hips are here, kind of pushing back.
How heavy?
It was 290 kilos. So I was able to load up my heels, so put my feet right out, load up my heels, and just use that. So there was no pain on my foot. So I got 29 reps at 290 kilos.
29 reps?
It was, I wouldn't say parallel, but it was good enough to get the win. So I was like, sweet, I won.
Oh, so you won that?
Yes, I won that event.
Oh, man, that's amazing.
Get some good points, put me back up to, I don't know, maybe 3rd, and that's kind of where I stayed. So the last event was the natural stones, so another not a good event for me. It was like 120 kilos, 135 kilos, and it just goes up and up and up. So you had to not only pick up the rocks, but you had to run with them and load them onto a barrel. And then once you've loaded it onto the barrel, you can go to the next one, and then the next one. And so I got to the 3rd one, and it was one of those situations where I hadn't spoken to it enough. So I didn't know where the handles were, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was mucking around, and you time out. You've got a minute to do this, and I timed out, and I was just like, done. And I wasn't sure if I finished 3rd, because then they take the points away and tally it up and then do the prize giving. But yeah, I was pretty lucky to be top 3.
Yeah, man, that's amazing, man. That's super cool. What a story.
with 1 foot. And
yeah, I saw the image online, man, and your foot doesn't look good at all.
It's still purple, so that's why I got socks on, but it's okay now. Like, I'm loading it, I'm walking around in it. It's like I say, I was really lucky with where the fracture was, and that I didn't do further damage to it competing on the Sunday. So I went back for scans down here on Tuesday, and they were like, yeah, it's looking good, man. You just need to not load it for a couple of weeks and then come back for a check and don't do anything stupid. And I was like, cool. Like, wow, that was so lucky. So yeah, I'll be back training next week, really, just upper body stuff and keep the body ticking over. Wait out the 2 weeks and start prepping for nationals.
Wow, man, that's awesome. When is going to be national? December, you said?
1st week of December in Hamilton, I think. Hamilton or Hastings, yeah. So that'd be cool. I'll look forward to that. And then probably the record breakers after that, and then Arnold's in March. So Arnold's is, so I qualified for that last year. It was supposed to be March this year. So Arnold's is the big platform for strongman amateur. So if you win that, you go pro. The rest is history. But I wasn't ready for that level this year in March. But next year, I'd like to think I'd be top kind of 5 maybe, which would be cool. But I wasn't too concerned with pro card or anything like that. I just wanted to do a international, see where I sat and represent New Zealand.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Tyler, what do you think New Zealand? What has to be done to make this sport more available, more popular in New Zealand?
Yeah, I think the exposure on channels like yourself probably needs a bit more funding, corporate funding or government funding, just to promote it. But yeah, it just needs a bit more of a backing. Like, powerlifting has a really good backing and really good following of people. Just strongman is too much in the underground. It needs to be a bit more in the foreground. So, you know, I'll try and do as much as I can, especially in Wellington. to promote it down here, but it needs other people as well to step up. And there are pockets of people that are doing it in like Christchurch and Auckland, and but yeah, we probably need a bit more of that recognition from not so much from corporates, but just some kind of backing. Like, why is it not on television, or even on Sky or something like that?
That would be so awesome. Yeah, such a cool thing to watch. Yeah.
Well, people would watch it, like, especially the national stuff. Like, that is awesome. To be fair, it can be, maybe 4 or 5 hours. But, I mean, how long are fight nights?
Yeah.
With
cricket goes for 3 days.
Like a whole week. Watch that, no problem. So, yeah, things like that. Just getting it out there, and you can choose if you want to watch it or not. It doesn't need to be in your face, but just that exposure that, hey, this thing is on this weekend. You want to watch it, or even live stream. That seems pretty simple in nowadays, but it's not very common for us.
Yeah, even out of I didn't know a woman was competing on that as well, and I was very curious. Even tomorrow has an event in Paraparaumu.
Yep.
Yeah, and a woman's gonna compete as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm super keen to go just to see what's about it, because
You should. Yeah, I'll be there. Like I said before, the women are so strong. Like, you just don't see that kind of strength in your city fitness, or maybe in your city fitness, but not in your 24/7 gym, or your Jets gym, for example. They're in pockets and little places, either training by themselves, and they just come out to competitions and just blow people away with their strength. And it's just like, it's the coolest thing, man. And there needs to be more females in the sport. But it's just one of these things, like, you pretty much have to convert them one by one. You're not going to get a whole massive women flooding to do strongman and strong women. But goes back to your previous question of how do you expose it? How do you make it more available? You need facilities that have strongman equipment there to at least play with it and see if it's for you. And so,
what's the most fundamental, the most basic ones?
So you need you don't need. I would start with a log. Obviously a barbell. You can cover quite a bit with a barbell. A sandbag, and we're talking if you're at home. So that's pretty much how I started. Sandbag, log, some probably a yoke, if you can find a fabricator. A yoke is really useful because you can do several things with a yoke, not just putting it on your back and running with it. You can load your sandbag over it. You can do zerches with it. You can squat it.
Zerts? What's zerts?
Zerches, you put the bar across like this, and you can zerch a squat or zerch a run.
Okay.
So that's how I train for the anvil, because I don't have an anvil in Wellington. I was zercher squatting my yoke. Zercher running with my yoke. Load it up to about 150 kilos. You're good to go. Kind of the same thing as an anvil. So even if you don't have access to all these things, you can talk to someone about how you can replicate the feeling of what that implement would be. And yeah, I mean, there isn't an event that you probably couldn't replicate with some basic gym equipment. For example, I keep using the truck pull. You can just load up a sled, get a harness, and go for it. Like, that's a truck. Get some. If it's not heavy enough, get your pals to jump on it. Like,
that's insane.
you have to use whatever you have, right?
Yeah,
not everyone has access to all these things. Even just pressing a barbell, if you don't have a log, is much better than just ignoring the exercise. So there are ways around it, and even myself, accumulating kit over the years, I still have to improvise and talk to my coach about how do we do this. Like car squat, for example, was a good one. We were loading up one end of my yoke and going underneath it and then squatting that, and that replicated the car squat almost perfectly. But if you don't have the Kiwi ingenuity, right? Like, you just gotta make do with what you have.
What's the best gym equipment, with the best equipments for strongmen in New Zealand?
Oh, jeez, good question. Auckland probably, because kind of strongman was born in Auckland,
In
so
Auckland?
there are a couple of good gyms up there.
So people can go and check it out and not just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Or they can get hold of me wherever you're located, and I can probably point you in the right direction. Wellington is tricky. There are only a couple of places. The CrossFit box has got my kit, so that's pretty kitted out. And then down in Christchurch and not quite Dunedin. But yeah, there's very small pockets of gyms that have all the equipment or none. Even Palmy has really good stuff.
That's
Levin,
cool.
my pal that came second in the comp last week, he's got a really good gym. Levin. So I would often drive up there from my house, so that's about an hour each way to train with him because he had all the stuff. And we still do. I take the boys up every now and then, go for a session, a couple of hours, and then drive back. We still do that to this day because that's kind of where it started for me, where I started learning a lot was in this little gym in Levin.
That's awesome.
So you've got to be prepared to find the gyms, or at least reach out to the people that have access or know where the gyms are.
That's super cool. So Tyler, imagine if I go to you and say, "Hey Tyler, I want to become stronger." So how's the training work? So for example, how do we start it?
Yeah, good
It's
question.
about repetitions, about loading every time. How's the process?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a loaded question. So getting strong is just getting strong. We're not talking strongman. So my strength classes, for example, are not strongman classes. They're strength classes. So your compound movements, I'm very big on the compound movements, builds strength. And then your basic like repetitions builds muscle, intensity builds strength. But you can't do the low rep heavy stuff without the muscle, without the repetition, without the building phase beforehand. So say if someone off the street asked me for coaching, I would start with probably and say they haven't touched weights before. I would start with a few months of bodybuilding, building the body, building the muscle fibers, ready to handle these loads later. You don't get strong straight away. It's a long process. I mean, I've been in strength sports for 10 years and I'm still not where I want to be or where I need to be. So it just takes time. If you give me a year, we could do some damage. But you wouldn't be, well, depending who you are, if you're some freak that just blessed with genetics, then maybe we could go pretty far in a year. But the expectation would be like, look, we just want to improve on you, maybe get a really good back squat on you, a good deadlift, some kind of overhead number that you have in mind and go from there. But it's, you don't just wake up with strength. You need to really work on it. And I feel like a lot of people tend to rush that phase because I'm 34. A lot of the guys that I'm competing with are early 20s, and pretty much want to be on top straight away. And it's just like, man, like you just need skin in the game. Like you've got to really put years and years into building yourself physically and mentally to be able to handle this sport. And strongman is one of these sports where it looks really entertaining and it looks quite, I wouldn't say sexy, but it looks like, man, I want to do that. Like that's me. But people have no idea the amount of work that goes into a sport like that. Like the pain, not so much the pain and the struggle, but the time, the consistency required, the perseverance to be really successful. A lot of that is kind of behind the scenes, and
It's
a lot of work.
amazing the amount of discipline you have with something. It's your hobby, right? It's your passion.
Yeah, there's no money involved in this. Last weekend was the first time I got paid for it, and it was like $100. Coming
Really?
there, yeah. So went to Macca's, got some beers. You know, like, you know, it's yeah. It goes back to the funding and why is there no money in this sport where people are breaking themselves for a hobby,
Just for the love, just for the.
just for the love. Like even pro, like if I got my pro card, probably I wouldn't be able to quit my job. I still have to work.
Wow, that's
Different overseas. Don't get me wrong. Like the States, there's big money, but in little old Aotearoa, there's nothing enticing to keep me in the sport. To be fair, other than the fact that I'm a little bit, you know, twisted to keep pushing myself to kind of be the best, but there is no real incentive. Not putting people off the sport, like I kind of promote it, but you know, you might get a medal if you win. Like you don't do it for gratification or money or anything like that. You do it because you want to. You want to better yourself, and I guess that's kind of where I was going with that. Is it's a cool sport. It could be really attractive if we had some backing.
I love what you guys are doing as a community in Porirua. You know, and Porirua has, especially, I mean, it's interesting that corner in Porirua has Alpha, Muay Thai, has, you know, the Porirua CrossFit, and you guys are together there. Even I have a few of my students run Jiu-Jitsu there, and yeah, that sense of community you guys are creating there, it's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed coming out of my closet, but you know, coming out of training at home was connecting with the community, and especially the Porirua community. I felt like I was never really connected with it at all. So being at the CrossFit box, I'm able to talk to people, you know, and the kind of the word spread quickly after that. You know, Tyler's the strongman coach. Porirua now. I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm just teaching strength. Like I'm not a coach. I don't have any degrees. I'm not a PT, not a dietitian. I'm just teaching people what I learned, and what worked for me will pretty much work for you. So that's all I'm doing. But yeah, so from that, it kind of just caught on really, really quickly that this is the strongman guy. Like this is where you go to learn strength, or learn strongman. And my classes have pretty much been full from day one.
I can imagine, yeah.
And for me, because I'm still learning, right? I'm learning how to coach people. I've only had to worry about myself for so long. So it's really cool working with people and finding out what works for them. And then I guess the most rewarding thing from it is when people come talk to me after class, or when I'm at the gym the following week, like, hey Tyler, like my squats are feeling great. Like, thank you so much. And I've got this lady, she's 64. She is just a complete inspiration to me. You know, 30 years my senior, and she is just like, my squats are the best they've ever been. I was just like, oh man, that is so worth it just to hear that. But you need people with the right attitude. You don't want to, you know, people that will, you know, try and poison the waters as such. So. And I feel like in Porirua, it's a really cool community, and everyone gets behind you. I support other gyms and other strength coaches as well, and I just think we can, like all of us together, we can raise the profile of strength and strongman, not just Porirua, but Wellington as well. But just I'm more connected with probably the Porirua community, and I guess next year I'd like to take it a bit further and start working with the youth and really get them into into strength, not necessarily strongman, but just getting them into working out. You know, like especially your Polynesian and Māori clusters there in Porirua. I think there is a lot of untapped talent within those communities, and they just need a bit of help. So I'd like to be in a position next year to have a facility where I can provide that help for the youth and also for people starting out. You know, you could be 15 or 64. It doesn't matter when you start your strength journey. Just do it right. You know, start with the right people or start with the right coach. Not saying that that's me, but you know, don't just go out and do your own thing and think that you're doing it right. Get some real guidance. Get a coach or something like that. And so next year would be trying to put aside a bit of time to focus on that.
That's awesome.
Hopefully.
So Tyler, now let's see how strong you are. And I'm gonna make some tough questions
Sure.
again. So we have this section of the podcast. The name is Embrace the Chaos. When we're trying to to peel some layers here. So Tyler, the first question: Do you cry?
Not really. I can't remember the last time I cried. Not being like the strongman guy. But
Why you don't cry?
I don't know, man. Maybe haven't felt a strong sense of loss or anything like that recently. I mean, like when I dropped the anvil on my foot, I joked that I felt like crying, but it was just a stupid accident, you know. Like life goes on. I haven't, you know, touch wood, I haven't lost anyone, or probably, oh gosh, this is gonna sound really bad. Probably the last time I remember crying was when my daughter was born, about 5 years ago. I'm sure I've cried since then, but not that I remember. I mean, that's just me. Like I'm a real keep my emotions in kind of guy. I like to give off the tough man facade, but yeah, I just think I'm not that emotionally inclined to crying.
Yeah. And why is that? Why do you think this?
I don't know, man. I've just always been a bit stubborn like that. I've always tried to keep my emotions inside. I don't think anyone needs to see that, but more recently I've been, like I say, with the guys, I've been a bit more open with myself and things like that. And definitely I have been listening more, which I think I enjoy better than talking more about emotions and things like that. I feel like I'm a better soundboard for things like that. Because I can kind of control those emotions and I don't really get stressed out too much. You know, I wouldn't like get stressed at work or anything like that.
Do you think because of your nature or because the train helps to keep the emotions under control as well?
Probably, probably nailed it with the training. Like I don't know what my mental state would be if I didn't train, or if I didn't have goals or competitions lined up. So I've been competing for over 10 years. I've always had something lined up. So COVID was probably the toughest thing for me because I didn't have any certainty of when I would be competing next. I was just like, man, what's the point in training if I don't have a comp? But but then I kind of took that pill and swallowed it and trained really hard because I knew that when we come out of COVID, all the competition's going to be bang, 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 bang. And I was ready. I went win, third. But
man, it's still really good, and even under the circumstances as well. Come on, man. Yeah, that was amazing. That's super cool.
So I did a lot of work throughout that lockdown period, thankfully, because I was already training at home, and that really just built my base ready for the competitions to come. And I still have that base that I did during that time. So I'll just keep using that and building on to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the training certainly has helped.
That's awesome. How do you deal with the loss?
Pretty bad. I mean, again, I just bottle it all in. So I use my father as the example. I mean, he passed away when I was maybe, I don't know, early 20s, maybe 20. I cried at the funeral, and I think that was about it. Maybe once or twice after the fact, but I'm just the kind of guy, all right, that chapter's closed. I cried.
Yeah.
Move on. You know, like I don't bring up, and most people that know me probably don't know that he's passed away, but like, why do I need to bring it up? You know, he wasn't like a huge part of my life anyway. So yeah, to me it was just kind of like, all right, that sucks. Like you don't have a dad, but now I'm a dad, so I can be present.
Yeah.
You know, not dwell on that. Yeah.
And I like what you said about the community and now, because this definitely helps us, to deal with our emotions, to be able to have someone to listen and and to share our stories. Huh?
Yeah, I think it's helped quite a lot, because I've always trained by myself for so long, years, and it's just like
Has a limit for growth. Huh?
well, yeah, you just kind of bottle all these things up, and you don't really let it out ever. And so when I was able to talk to these guys a bit more, that's when I started maybe feeling a bit better about myself. I don't know, like kind of just feel this weight, or this, not burden, but this weight has come off your shoulders, and that has freed up my mental capacity to focus more on training, or be a better dad, perhaps, because I'm not bottling up these feelings, and I'm not saying that anything's wrong, but like I say, it could be like I'm really stressed out about this competition. I just need you guys to come to the gym tonight, just help me out, and they pretty much always are there. Cutting weight was a really good example. So I hadn't eaten in about 20 hours. Still had about half a kilo to lose. So the night before, everyone was there, and they were training, and I was just like hanging out, like doing mobility and stuff like that. The night before weigh-in, just take my mind off the hunger and the stress, and the expectations that I had on myself. So you don't even have to talk. You just need to be present with people. I think will help anyone significantly. You don't have to be trapped by yourself. And if you don't have access to people, then maybe reach out, like find someone. Most of these guys we met on Instagram.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So I never grew up with them. One of the guys I played softball with back in our teens, but the rest we pretty much just met on Instagram, and then we're just like a tight unit, and we all have our backgrounds and our issues with mental health and things like that. Not all of us, but so we all just kind of we just talk, man. Like we're always there. Well, it's been a short period of time, like maybe this year, but I think that's kind of a friendship that will continue on.
That's awesome, Thailand. That's super cool. Even I found you through Instagram as well, because one of my students, Andrew Kevin, he mentioned something. He said, "Man, I want to know who's this guy." So Tyler, if you could go back to talk to yourself, 15 years old yourself, and you had 5 minutes, what are you gonna say to yourself?
Gosh, good question. I'd probably say pull your head in. Like really start focusing on what you want to achieve, where you want to be in life. Man, my 20s was just wasted. Like honestly wasted.
Why?
Too much alcohol, dead-end jobs, like not being happy in my job for no reason. I could have just found something that I liked 10, 15 years ago, but I didn't. I just trucked along, like I had I have secured jobs since I was 16. So that's fine. That pays the bills, but it wasn't aspiring to be anything or anyone. Even with the kickboxing, like I was just pretty happy just going through the motions. Didn't really have any aspirations to be pro or anything like that. Powerlifting was a bit of a shift, but so the powerlifting in my 20s I was still pretty not as dedicated to it as I am nowadays, and a bit more targeted in the things that I want to achieve in life now. like buy the house and have a couple of kids and have a really good job, be happy in that life, and have a sport that I really love. I could have done this when I was 20, and there was no reason why I couldn't. So I guess I would just say, pull your head in, man. Like, stop thinking about yourself and start looking out around you. And there are people that probably could have used my help back then. But if you're so like focused on yourself, like you're just switched off. And so yeah, I'd like to get those years back, but I think I'm doing pretty well for my 30s, and then hopefully keep that momentum going in 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Tyler, Tyler. There any question I should ask you and I didn't?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so, Vanderson. I'm a big fan of yours, actually. Just to flip the tables a bit, and I was watching some of your some of your gradings. Where you hand out the belts, and I was like, man, like that's so cool. I wish strongman had something like that, where you reach a certain level, like say you've been training for a year, you reach a certain level, and you get not rewarded with something, but you get acknowledgement that, hey, you're okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But man, you're a black belt in lift weights, man. That's
well, not quite. I think it's maybe brown.
nah, man. 10 years and already achieving what you're achieving. Yeah, because normally to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of minimum 10 years.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So you're done your 10,000 hours.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that many times, and yeah, I guess there's a long way to go, man. I've still got another 30,000 left, eh? I just got to keep the body right, keep the mind right.
Yes,
keep pushing forward and don't drop anvils on my foot.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be all right.
Yeah. So Tyler, if people want to know more about you, so please give it your Instagram and of course the address where you've been training.
Yeah. So Mr. Consistent MT, which the MT stands for Muay Thai, back to the tribute to the Muay Thai days, which
that's awesome.
I miss with all my heart. I do miss it. If anything, I'd still like to get back into boxing. But probably not the fighting side of things. I don't know, but yeah, Mr. Consistent MT is probably the best way. I'm at CrossFit Porirua. In Elsden. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. That I use that for more of my business stuff, but I have been promoting a bit more strongman because I feel like that's where those corporate connections may come through if anyone was interested in that space to, I don't know, put something forward to help build a better a platform for the youth, or maybe start my own thing. That would be really cool, but totally not expected. Like, I'm totally prepared to do it all myself. I think that's pretty much it.
That's awesome.
I'm around, man. Like I'm pretty open. I get pretty much every week I get someone asking, "Hey, how do I get into strongman?
Yeah.
Where do I start in strongman?" It's like, you just started. Just messaging someone, you just started. Or I'll be at the gym. Come meet me at 12 o'clock. CrossFit Porirua. Try and last the whole 3 hours, and you're in. You get your white belt if you can last the 3 hours. But no, like if people are interested in training, we do scale it back. Like, you don't just go into walking 400 kilo yoke. We scale it back to male and female. So it's pretty, and we're all pretty open, and we've got all sorts of strength levels and experiences. So just hit me up, or get hold of your local coach wherever you are, and try and grow the sport.
Yeah. Tyler Simpson. We're gonna hear more this name for sure. My brother, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and I'm gonna go. I'm for sure, I'm gonna go to training for you, man. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I want to become stronger for sure. So, my brother, thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.